Hello everybody, and welcome to my new moon video report for the new moon in Leo that's coming up this Wednesday, the 31st of July. It's going to be happening at 11:11 Eastern Standard Time, which is so perfect. As you can see, I'm not in my normal spot today, and I forgot my tarot cards, so I'm going to be just kind of digging into the astrology today, and it's okay because there is so much going on with this new moon in Leo, and it's actually a lot later than it has been for a while, and I think there's some astrology that's happening around it that I think might sort of give it this little bit of anxiety, but for the most part, lots of really positive and beautiful stuff that's coming. So, yeah, and there's lots of cool aspects going on. So I'm going to start off by talking about the Leo energy and sort of the essence of what this new moon is bringing in. So Leo is, in an evolutionary astrology, Leo's sort of the sign where for the first time there's like a cohesive enough identity of self, an ego, enough of a formed ego to be able to sort of step out into the public and interact and interface with other people. And so with Leo, there's a lot of bravery needed to be vulnerable enough to say, this is who I am, and to sort of like bring your most authentic version of yourself forward. And what's kind of tricky about Leo is it is a fixed fire sign, and so I think that this energy works best, or this practice of sort of bringing the self forward and feeling proud about who you are, what you're doing, as long as it's understood that that's always evolving and that process is always evolving. But I think we're at this point right now in Leo season where we're really being encouraged to sort of just like step up for ourselves, for who we are and for what we're kind of here to do. I think this has been a time of processing for a while with this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, and we have Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, all retrograde right now, these outer planets, and so it's kind of been a little bit sluggish for a while. Lots of processing, lots of inspiration, reorientation, restructuring, like switching lanes, kind of endings and new beginnings, lots of that going on here. And so we also have Uranus moving through Taurus, which is going to be interacting with this new moon. Uranus is at 6 degrees of Taurus, and the new moon is at 8 degrees of Leo, and they're in a square to one another. And so Uranus and Taurus, I think one of the main energies involved in this process right now is anxiety and stress that are the most stable parts of our lives are kind of crumbling. That's Uranus, the awakener, in the sign of Taurus, which is our safety nets, the things that make us feel most safe and comfortable, and they're being disrupted right now. And so that's kind of like left us with not really much of a choice about what we should be doing. And so we know what we should be doing. That's kind of the message of this new moon, is like, okay, let that anxiety be there, and like don't judge what's going on around sort of overthinking or clinging, or sort of this like more conservative approach to things, but like notice that, but don't act on those fears or anxieties, because I think this is a time where it's a time for taking chances. It's a time for really stepping up for yourself based on the things that have been coming up over the last few months. There's been a lot of lots of intense stuff going on in Cancer. Cancer season was extra long this year, with that Mars moving through Cancer, interacting with Mercury, and then Mercury retrograding back into Cancer, and we had all the personal planets moving through Cancer, and just sort of time of deep reflection, time of rich inner dialogue, inner processing, emotional communication with people around you, emotional processing with yourself, and there's so much I think that we learned from that space about what love means, what love feels like, what it means to love and nurture ourselves, what unconditional love looks like, observing, from an objective perspective, and loving ourselves despite the things that we're ashamed of, despite traumas, all of this, having to be that sort of like nurturing, mothering, holding of ourselves through whatever was going on in our personal lives, public lives, through that Cancer season. And so, with Uranus moving through Taurus for this next 7 years, it's really a time of like ripping ourselves up from wherever we're rooted, and I mentioned this in another video, and I feel like it's just still continuing to resonate with me a lot, this imagery of like lifting ourselves, like we're the plant that's being transplanted and we need a larger pot to grow in. And in that time of like the roots just dangling in the air, we can feel incredibly vulnerable and like, what the hell is going on right now? But we have to trust and really have faith that we're being provided with opportunities to step up for ourselves in whole new kinds of ways. Leo is also, and the new moons are these like beautiful moments of, they're so pure, and I feel like with this one I'm feeling like it's going to be such a kind of pure and light feeling new moon, celebratory. It's like this joy, but it's not chaotic joy, really. I mean, there can be all this chaos going on, but the essence of the new moon itself is just kind of this like, okay, like leap of faith, like I'm ready to go for it. And we've got a lot of really supportive things that are going on that are encouraging us to really, make a move, take action, be who we are, express who we are. This has a lot to do with Leo, and this new moon and this whole season coming up has a lot to do with self-expression. Leo is the sign of the performer, creativity, and so I think that there's this sort of shift that needs to happen in how we understand creativity. I think in like patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist culture, creativity is this really confined sort of thing. It's like you're either a singer or a dancer or a visual artist and you went to school for those things or whatever it might be. And I think that for some people, creativity is maybe something that lines up with like their 10th house and their kind of like career, purpose, this kind of thing. But creativity can be way more subtle than that. It can be in the 6th house, and and this is why it's cool to understand your own chart, or to know sort of where these energies are manifesting. But creativity can happen on this super subtle level, through food, through day-to-day routine, through doodling. Like, I think there needs to be this sort of trusting in our creative selves and our creative voices, because we understand ourselves through the things that we create. We see ourselves mirrored back at us in a way that is helps us understand the whole of what is going on here on this life experience. And what's tricky about Leo energy is because it is sort of the sign associated with the ego, we, again, patriarchal, white supremacist, capitalist culture has really diseased the ego in a lot of ways and wounded the ego, so that it really is all, the ego's inflated and everything else is in the subconscious and the spirit are all kind of like subdued, and that makes for a very unbalanced experience of life. And so I think this can also be a time of sort of setting intentions around healing some ego wounding and sort of thinking about like, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for myself and for my self-expression? Is it coming from this really kind of pure place of just like needing to express and play? Leo is play and silliness and joy, or is it coming from a place of, insecurity and needing validation from those around us. And I think oftentimes it's some combination of those two things. And so this is a really awesome time, I think, to look at the, like, okay, where am I doing this for other people? Where am I giving my power away and performing something that is not feeling authentic? And that's why, you know, like, all of the signs are these spectrums. It can really be a wild spectrum of, like, you know, if you have that, like, egomaniac voice that kind of, like, creeps in, which most of us do. We all have Leo in our chart, and, like, it can kind of creep in. That can be something to just be like, oh, okay, there's that, you know, sort of like observing. But I think Leo, the gift of self-expression is, like, if we have an ego that really is in alignment with our inner world, and this is so cool if we, you know, Cancer and Leo being right next to each other, Cancer being the inner world and the inner dialogue, then Leo is this, like, outer expression that can, as a performer myself, and even just, like, doing these videos or, like, whatever, just being able to sort of put myself out there, there's definitely, like, one of the most pure forms of fulfillment and satisfaction, like, being understood. And so I think this is a time of just seeing, like, what is our most, like, authentic, creative version of ourselves. And again, that doesn't have to actually be, like, you know, science is art, math is art, building is art, cooking is art, caretaking is art. Like, there is this capacity to just live in the vibrancy of the moment and just be who you are, and see yourself both, you know, Taurus is more kind of like see yourself through your work and, like, understand your self-worth through your work. Leo is kind of like understand yourself through your expression. So and your play, and so yeah, this could be an awesome time to, like, infuse a little bit more of that into what's going on for you. It could also be a time to just kind of know what this next chapter, you know, not knowing what the next chapter is going to look like yet, but knowing where you are at and who you are right now enough to take the steps. And so we've got these really supportive aspects for doing that, for taking action, with Mars being in Leo as well, in really loose, not really conjuncting the Sun at 19 degrees of Leo Mars, and Mars is in a trine with Jupiter at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, and that's been kind of an ongoing thing, and so we'll be feeling that in the, you know, the next few days, have been feeling it over this last week, this sort of like, okay, Mars is the planet of action, the planet of doing. Mars is super strong in Leo, and Jupiter in its home sign of Sagittarius in this retrograde is sort of more of this undercurrent of, like, Jupiter moving through Sagittarius is sort of like, how are we growing and expanding in our lives? Like, where is this growth? And this can be through travel, this could be through moving, this can be through starting schooling in a different kind of subject or thing. This is very kind of like big, grand move. And with the Jupiter in the retrograde, it's this, like, sort of like reconfiguration, reorientation. And so I think that my understanding of this aspect of the trine from Mars to Jupiter is like, okay, now is the time to take action on some piece of this reconfiguration. We're going to have Jupiter going direct on the 11th of August. So, and again, this new moon's happening at 11/11. So there's a lot of, for folks who are into numerology, I'm just starting to learn about it, that all seems very empowering and very kind of like it's in your hands, like you take action on this, you can do this, you manifest, like you're the magician, and not you're going to just kind of go along for this ride right now, but like, yeah, like you have the power to, you have to take action, you have to be an agent in this situation. And so, yeah, I think the Mars trine Jupiter is like giving us this opportunity to, to take some action that's allowing for this grander expansion to be happening. The courage, Leo's about courage, like it's so vulnerable, like putting yourself out there in front of other people, just like, this is who I am, and it sort of relies on this trust that like your community will hold you and hold space for like all of who you are. so yeah, there's this opportunity for taking some really like concrete action there. And then we also have Venus in the mix. Venus is way closer. Venus is at 4 degrees Leo, and again the new moon at 8 degrees of Leo. So really beautiful opportunity for like all that's kind of happened. I mean, just really beautiful is how I would say this all is and feels. Like Venus brings in this kind of charmed, sparkly, like lusciousness, like vibrancy. There can be a lot going on like with relationships right now, and like love, and this maybe just having gone through the ringer with loved ones, and now there's just like this like celebration of love, I think, that can be possible, and love that's super honest and authentic, and also that whatever steps are happening right now, that they're very purely and honestly aligned with your value systems, which are changing, again, with Uranus moving through Taurus. So, yeah, this has definitely been a bit of a rocky last few weeks, and I think just like taking note of the anxiety and like letting that be Uranus again being very active in this new moon, but kind of like riding that like crazy, wild, electric, chaotic energy that comes with Uranus around taking chances, and like the chances that you're taking aren't going to be reckless, because whether we wanted to or not, have been in this process of like reflection and having to like look at some more intense aspects of our lives over this last, with all that Scorpio stuff that had been going on for a while. Like we know it might feel reckless because maybe other people don't understand, or it's breaking up from comfort, but we know that we're following our truth about who we are and what we're here to do, what we're here to create, what we're here to make, how we're here to love. Again, so much of this has to do with where in your own chart this is happening. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it. Oh, yeah, lastly, we just have Neptune in the mix as well. Neptune's actually part of a grand trine with Mars and Jupiter. So, again, that adds this other kind of like sparkly, dreamy, magical kind of element to what's going on that I think can be really nice. So, I think this is going to be a really good opportunity to plant some seeds around courage to just be yourself and do what you need to do, and take some action, love, like heart-centered action, heart-centered relationships, and I'm going to be, so right now I'm based in Burlington, Vermont. I'm going to be moving down to Philadelphia in September, so August is going to be my last month in town. So if anyone is interested in getting a reading during that time, definitely hit me up either through Facebook Messenger, or you can go to my website, thefoolandthechariot.com, and you can sign up directly through the website for a session as well. And this is such beautiful stuff going on, and I'm so grateful to get to share about all of this with you, and excited to go through it myself. I think it's going to be the boost we need. So lots of rest leading up. We've been through a lot this last little bit, and we want to be feeling positive and charged and energized, I think, for the new moon, to make the most of this like potent energy. And I think I just sort of had a realization a few days ago that, like, I think we're always, when we're thinking about new moons and full moons and setting intentions, it's super active and action oriented. And I think it's also important to remember that, like, we're submerged in the medicine, like, of the current context of our astrology, and like whether we want to be, participating and like co-creating with that energy, or we, regardless of our, there can be a lot that can happen and manifest when we do actively participate with it, but either way, like, we will be receiving the medicine. And if, being more receptive feels like how you want to spend this new moon, I think that that would be really beautiful as well. We have all the energetic support we need all around us at all times. It's just a matter of tapping into it. So, yeah, definitely reach out if you're interested in getting your own chart read. And I am, yeah, so grateful to get to share this with y'all, and I look forward to seeing you soon. All right, bye-bye.